All right, so we're going to keep on solving quadratic equations. The methods we learned Friday, sometimes they would work and sometimes they wouldn't. Not every quadratic equation will factor, and not every quadratic equation is set up in a way that you can extract square root. But the two today, you can always do. Sometimes it's smart or short to do completing the square, and sometimes it's not. So I'm going to show you both ways. Ones that are wise to use completed square and then one that is not. And so when you do your assignment today, you get to choose what method to use. So anyway, this one, G, is a good one to do by completing the square. In completing the square, you don't want the equation in standard form. You don't want everything on one side and 0 on the other side. So the first thing we're going to do is move the constant to the other side. All right, so since the t is the 1 is negative on the left, is going to be positive on the right. All right, then your algebra 2 teacher may have shown you to do blanks. When I'm completing the square, I like to do blanks. So when we're solving equations by completing the square, you are going to add a blank on each side. You're going to add something on both sides. And we're going to add something, so this is a perfect square trinomial. So you know what a perfect square is. Like, it's something you square something to get. So 3 squared is 9, so 9 is a perfect square. So a perfect square trinomial is the same idea. But what you square is actually a factor, like a binomial factor. So in my last class, I had some people remember what to put in the blanks. Do you guys remember what you do? You do something into 4. I'll just give you a hint. Do y'all remember what you do before to figure out what goes in the blank? Do something before you square it. You take half of it. So we're going to take whatever b is, which is going to be that middle coefficient. We're going to take half of it and then square it. Now, I don't usually use the negative. Why is that okay? Right, you're going to square it. So negative 4 divided by 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is the same as positive 2 squared. So we don't really have to worry about the negative in this step right here. So half of 4 is 2. 2 squared is 4. That's what we add in each set of parentheses. Now we could do the factoring like we did on Friday, where we're just going to find what multiplies to give us 4 and what adds to give us 4, which is 2 and 2. But I know that I made that a perfect square trinomial. So I know when I factor it, it's going to be something times itself. So I don't go through that process every time. I kind of do a shortcut where I'll just, whatever the variable is, I'll just bring it down. Just regular t. Right? Bring down whatever sign that is. See, and we already know from factoring it, it's going to be x minus 2. So that 2 came from what we got when we took half of 4. So because I made that perfect square trinomial, I don't have to go through the process of factoring. I already know what's going to happen. It's going to be something squared. All right, what do I get on the right? 5. Okay. Once you get here, you already know how to do this. If you understood on Friday, because this looks a lot like F and E. So we have this thing that's squared. So I don't want the square. So I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Now, please don't forget about the plus or minus. All right, and then I just have one more step, which is to move the 2 over. Now, in my opinion, this is the fastest way to solve this equation. I like completing the square more than I like the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is my least favorite way to do it, but some people it's their favorite way, so it just depends on how much simplifying you like to do. Okay, we're going to skip H for now, because H is kind of a mess. But I want you guys to try I on your own. So the same steps we just did, try to solve that one by completing the square. All right, which I'll do first. And when I write Z's, I put like a little line through them so they don't look like 2's. Because my 2's and Z's look almost exactly the same. Okay, then I'm going to add a blank on each side so I can complete the square. Okay, what did you guys add in the blank? So half of 10 is 5. 5 squared is 25. Then we can do the shortcut to factor this by bringing down the z, bringing down the plus, and then the number is what we got when we took half. All right, then we'll just do the square root of both sides. And then move the 5 over. I saw when I was walking around, a lot of you got that, so that's good. If I saw you stuck, I kind of got you on the right track. Okay, this is another one that I think is really good way to solve it is by completing the square. Oh, it should be negative. Don't be afraid to speak up if you see me do something wrong. It won't hurt my feelings, I promise. H, on the other hand, is not a good method to solve it by completing the square, but I want to show you what happens. We can still do it. It's just a lot more tedious and difficult to do. It's the way it works out. All right, we're still going to move that 2 over. But the difference on this one is that 3. We can't have a 3 in front of the x squared and it be a perfect square trinomial. Right? There's nothing perfect about 3. So you because this one has a coefficient for the x squared, we are going to have to divide by that coefficient. So that's where this gets kind of messy. Because 3 doesn't divide evenly into 10 or 2. Okay. Now, all the steps are going to be the same, but the carrying out the math is going to be difficult, more difficult because the fractions, but we can still do it. So this time, b is 10/3. So we're going to take half of 10/3, and we're going to square that. So just logically, what do you think half of 10/3 is? I think 5/3. So we have 10/3 gathered up, and we want half of that. It's going to be 5/3. Right? And then do you guys know how to square a fraction? You just square the numerator and get 25. Square the denominator and get 9. That's what we're going to add to each side. Okay. Then I'm going to factor this, but I know it's a perfect square trinomial, so I don't have to go through the long process. I can just bring down the f, bring down the minus, and then bring down what I got when I took half. Okay. Now, adding fractions is not something you guys have done probably without a calculator in a while. So to add fractions, what do you have to have? Common denominator. What is it going to be? 9. Good. So this one, we're missing is a 3. To make it a 9, we multiply by 3. But to keep it legal, we do that on the top and bottom of the fraction. All right, and then once I have a common denominator, what do I do? What do I add? Just the numerators. So slightly more tedious because it just didn't come, everything wasn't pretty numbers, but we're gonna get there. So plus 2. Now we would take the square root of both sides. All right, so our numerator is the square root of 31. Will the square root of 31 reduce? What about the square root of 9? Yes, so that's just 3. Regular old 3. And then we'll move that 5/3 over. So one like this one, I really would not recommend that you solve it by completing the square. It is just kind of a big mess. So when you do your assignment tonight, you get to decide what method that you're going to use. So when is it better to solve by completing the square, like on G and I? What did they have that made it better? Yes, ma'am. Of 1, right? Okay, so if we're talking about a x squared plus bx plus c equals 0, a is 1. That's one of the things you're going to look for if you want to complete the square. What about b? What would it be best if b was? What type of number? Doesn't have to be a perfect square. Even. So in those cases, it's pretty quick and easy. Not easy, but not crazy weird. You won't get fractions. this one, h, I would solve by a quadratic formula. Even though it's my least favorite way, it would be the best way for that one. Okay, so let's talk about the quadratic formula. Do you guys remember it?
A whole lot of numbers, or letters.
It's a whole lot of letters. So what is it? X equals?
-3 plus minus square root b squared minus 2.
Good. Did you guys learn a song to remember it, or you just remember it? You learned a song? Does anybody want to hear a song? Okay, I'm not going to sing it. But there's a woman on YouTube that will sing it for you. Let me find it. Here she is. Now, she asked you to sing along. If y'all want to sing along, you can. It's up to you.
Julie with Mahalo.com, and I have a huge tip to help you remember the quadratic equation. Now, every once in a while, you're going to have a teacher that's going to put this on the test, and they're going to say you need to have it memorized. So how are you going to memorize it? We've got a song. It's a song everybody knows. So we're going to sing this equation to the tune of Row, Row, Row Your Boat. Now, I'm going to start with, I am not a singer. I'm a math teacher, so excuse the singing. I'm going to sing it once for you, and then I'm going to ask you to sing it along with me. Here goes nothing. X equals opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. It's important to know the word is opposite, not negative b, because sometimes when you're plugging in a b, you need the opposite sign. So we use the word opposite there. Let's try it again. You're going to sing with me this time. No, seriously, we're going to sing. I know nobody's around. Sing it with me. Remember, it's row, row, row your boat. So here we go. X equals opposite b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Learn this, you'll never forget it.
All right. So I honestly sing that in my head every single time I write the quadratic formula down, and it helps me remember it. So I recommend this song. Okay, so let's talk about A, B, and C. So A is 3, B is 2, C is going to be -10. If you didn't write down the quadratic formula yet, jot it down. And then we're just going to plug in our values. So the opposite of 2 plus or minus the square root. I'm going to go ahead and square 2, get 4. This 4 times A times C divided by 2A. I know in Algebra 2, you grabbed your graphing calculator and you typed 4 minus 4 times 3 times -10 and just popped out the answer. We're not going to do that. We're going to do it by hand. And we can do it. It's not a big deal. So what is -4 times 3? -12. And then what's -12 times -10? Positive 120. It's not too terrible. And then we'll just add 4 and 120. We get -124 underneath the square root. All right, so then, is there a square that goes evenly into 124? 12 is not a square.
Oh.
Okay, no big deal. There is one that's really small. Plus 4 divides evenly into it, and 4 goes into it 31 times. All right, so just keep on simplifying. So are we done? Not quite, yeah. So at this point, so just simplify your radical, keep bringing everything down. You're going to look at these 3 numbers. I kind of draw a heart. So the square root of 31 is ugly decimal, we don't worry about that one. So every number that's not underneath the square root, we're gonna look at those. Can they all be reduced by the same thing? Yes, and then we can reduce them. So we'll reduce them all by 2, and that would be your answer. All right. And then don't be surprised if on a multiple choice test like the ACT or our challenge exam, that you don't see them the fractions separated. So these are both perfect answers. So if you like to leave it like this, that is fine. But I do need you to know for a multiple choice test that those two are the same answer, just written in a different way. All right. Do you guys have any questions on the quadratic formula? Okay, I'm actually going to stop right there and give you guys your assignments. So on that same paper that I printed from your textbook, I want you to do some more problems. Now, it tells you what method to use. You don't have to listen to what it tells you. So you can choose the method. But in the end, I want to make sure that you do at least 4 by completing the square. And at least 4 by the quadratic formula. Now, I'm pretty sure there's more than 8, so the other ones, obviously, you can do whichever one you think is better.